Let's look ahead to the Women's Euros. Can England regain their title? Let's bring in Charlotte Richardson, women's football expert. Hey, Charlotte.
Hey, Charlotte.
Good afternoon, guys.
England got to get out of their group first. That England group is England, France, Netherlands, and Wales is about as hard as it gets.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to set the tone, certainly, for England in this tournament, coming in as the holders of the competition. It's really interesting when you actually look at the dynamics of the tournament as well and preparing for a major competition like this. In the past, perhaps you talk about growing in a tournament, but really and truly, there are only 6 games. This is a 6-game tournament. And I think over the years, Sarina Wiegman has really built a squad to be effective at that tournament management. But there is no room for error here. There is a lot of pressure on that England team for that opening game against France, and as you said there, the Netherlands, and then all on the line potentially against Wales, who, although they are the lowest ranked side in the competition, will be wanting to make sure that England have as uncomfortable time as possible in those ambitions to get out of the group.
But if you think of, that is the interesting about this group, and for listeners who don't necessarily follow the women's game that much, there are probably 5 or 6 teams who could win this tournament. And 3 of them are in Group D. So you've got England, France, and the Netherlands. Yeah. One of those potential winners just won't make it.
Exactly. So there's going to be one nation really upset. And I think, again, with this Euros as well, in terms of the rapid growth and improvement, we saw it in the World Cup, didn't we? A few shock results, certainly a few punishing performances and testing games against what I call, in inverted commas, lesser nations. And by that, I mean that don't have necessarily the funding that nations like England, France and Spain and Germany have. So it will be interesting to see which teams are kind of sharpened up tactically, technically. But I always feel a degree of comfort because we have Sarina Wiegman and her experience and nous. And it was really brilliant as well seeing the England under-21s win last night, and I was just thinking actually about the similarities between the management styles of Lee Carsley and Sarina Wiegman, 2 England coaches that have been with a group of players for a long time, having to deal with issues in the squad ahead of a major tournament as well, because it wasn't exactly easy for the under-21s. Likewise, it hasn't been easy for the Lionesses, but her know-how and experience will hopefully serve us really well in navigating our way out of the group of death, and perhaps be a real foundation for England, because they're going to have to be at that peak performance really early on. That will then hopefully build momentum.
Yeah, I think Germany are a dark horse for the tournament, actually. They should walk their group. I think Sweden might give them a game, but everyone else they should comfortably beat. And they've got Lena Oberdorf, who's fantastic midfielder. I think they could, if they have an easy group, they could really, they're my dark horse pick. I don't know what you think, Charlotte.
It's so funny you say that as well, Charlie, because I have written down Germany dark horse, which sounds absolutely ridiculous because they're like the bronze medalists from the Olympics. Yeah. They're 3rd ranked in the world. How could they possibly be a dark horse? They've got to be almost like a front runner. But I think they perhaps haven't necessarily had the same amount of spotlight like England and Spain have had. Looking into all the squad selections, and it feels like there's been quite a lot of nations as well where, similar to England, there's been a little bit of disruption, certain players being left out and so on. But Germany, of course, do also have that streak of revenge that they're looking for, being beaten by England at Wembley Stadium. They're going to want to atone that. They're going to want to correct that, and do have that luxury of a slightly easier group. Yeah. So can perhaps have that narrative of growth in the competition like England did when they won it a few years ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, the England squad is quite different from the one that won the Euros. Who are you? Do you think they are in a better position than that? Obviously, we won that tournament, but that doesn't necessarily mean the squad is better then than it is now. How do you feel about this squad going into this tournament?
I feel quietly confident. I really like the mix of experienced internationals with plenty of caps, major tournament experience under their belt, with the young, hungry players who will want to make an impact, want to make an imprint. And I think back on the last Euros tournament when the likes of Ella Toone and Alessia Russo, they weren't household names,
Yeah.
and the way that Serena Wiegmann had kind of bled them into the team, having those impacts off the bench. One player I'm really excited for people to watch, and maybe a few eyebrows were raised when she was selected into the squad, but Michelle Adjemang, the Arsenal forward, who came on in her England debut and scored an absolutely fantastic goal. I love her personality off the pitch. I love the confidence that she oozes. And I just get the sense with this England Lionesses group that they want to kind of write their own chapter in the Lionesses history. They seem in all of their interviews in the build-up to have a very, very strong belief in one another and look at it as a real opportunity. They know that they have this target on their backs, but it seems to be something they relish. And even the way they've answered questions about the group of death, I've just been really impressed by. So I love that blend of youth and experience. I'm really looking forward to the game tonight against Jamaica because I think we'll learn a lot about Serena's vision for this tournament from that 11.
What about Wales? I mean, it's a great achievement to make it without sounding patronising. And then they look at these three teams they've got to play. Just being there is enough for them? Is that, or is that just a terrible thing to say?
I don't think it's a terrible thing to say because the magnitude of making it to a first major tournament is incredibly significant, and the journey that the Welsh women's team has been on, even in sort of the recent years, and we talk and when we have these discussions about women's football, I think some listeners probably don't realise like the conditions and the lack of resource that some women's teams have had from their federations, and a lot of investment has gone into the Wales national team, and it's brilliant to see the reward of making it to a major tournament. I think they have an absolutely fantastic manager who's really astute, and we were talking perhaps about the pressure of the England Lionesses. Flip that on its head. Wales have nothing to lose. And as we saw when the men's side made it to a major tournament and progressed all the way to the semi-finals, that Welsh dragon instinct, that togetherness, that group mentality can serve you really, really well because it can be a battle and results can catch the eye. And with Wales, I just think, don't rule them out. I'm a bit nervous about our last group game being against them, I must say.
And just finally, Spain, who obviously were brilliant in the World Cup and have such brilliant players. And I suppose it was such a surprise that Barcelona didn't win the Champions League final because we were just expecting them to.
That might give England some hope, mightn't it, against Spain? Arsenal winning the Champions League. Sorry, Max.
That's all right.
You were carrying on your question. I butted in by saying
Arsenal. You asked a question. I'm happy for Charlotte to answer your question. It's not even your show, but that's the way you want it.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt.
Absolutely fine. Talk to us about Spain, Charlotte.
Well, Spain are the world champions. They have quality all across the football pitch. But as is always the case for every country going into a major tournament, there are often the unexpected things. And seeing Aitana Bonmati share an image on her social media, laid up in bed with viral meningitis.
Yeah.
She is back-to-back Ballon d'Or winner, and she is a player that can make something happen out of nothing. And although Spain are used to being dominant, even in recent matches against England, they've been given a far tougher time. Bonmati just has this footballing brain that unlocks phases of play before anyone else can even catch up. So that's going to be interesting because should Spain not get off to the start that they want, you can't really put Bonmati in from the start. They're going to have to rely on her and hope that they make it through to the latter phases. But look, they're very, very talented. They've got a wealth of attacking players who can cause teams all sorts of problems. But it's about turning up on the biggest stage of all. And just psychologically, is there a little chink there knowing that you've got one of your best players unable to be fully fit?
Yeah, we obviously wish her well, but she is responding to treatment, and she is okay. I think it's worth saying. Charlotte, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Speak to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Charlotte Richardson there. Yeah, every England game, every Wales game on the talkSPORT network. It begins on Wednesday, the tournament. Iceland take on Finland, and that will be live on talkSPORT Euro 2025 from Switzerland. Alex